dear sister Rose tragically took her life after a very long battle in 2005. And as anybody watching who has friends or family and has experienced living with or being close to someone who's in real mental health trouble, it's very, very distressing to see, and it's very distressing because sometimes one's not equipped to know how to deal with it. I was very close to Rose. Rose was a fantastic singer, and so we had always bonded hugely over our music, and so I tried to help her. She was up for a lot of it. She was in London, and then she was abroad. So I tried to help her by talking to her and to communicating with her, telling her that she was loved and trying to sort of be there. But that's what I mean in terms of when you're related to someone or living with someone who has this illness, it can be so severe sometimes that it's like you're on different worlds.
Yeah.
And I remember very clearly, actually, and I look back on it. I saw her a week before she died. She was in London, and I happened to be in London. And it's a strange thing to say, but I bumped into her. Although I saw her a lot, she happened to be in a bit of town that I was in, and she looked awful, as you can imagine. A week before, so she was incredibly drawn and very down. And I say this story because I spoke to her then, and I sort of said, come on, Rosie, we'll get through this. We'll go to the fireworks display tonight. And she said, she said, I feel like I'm in a glass coffin, 6 feet underground. I can see, I'm trapped in this world. And whatever I said to her, and trying to be positive, and you could see it was just so far from where she was mentally in terms
Yeah.
of able to say, okay, let's get positive. Yeah, I'll go for a run tomorrow. Well, she was so far beyond that. And that's terrifying to see. And that's where you need real help. My family's journey in terms of looking for help and getting help was not a particularly positive one, I'm sad to say. It was in 2005. It's a long time ago, and I can only hope things have improved. Obviously, there are the different setups out there in terms of the mental health trusts and the NHS and your doctor. I mean, the first port of call I would say would be to have to go to your doctor and express your issues. And there are so many things I sort of want to say, and it's such a long conversation. Going to one of the things that I'll say, and this is purely from my own personal journey of Rose, is that what I see nowadays is the speed with which drugs are administered, are handed out to try and solve a problem, rather than the much longer and probably more expensive journey, which is to try and find the root of the problem, rather than just treating the symptoms. And I think that is something that within the medical world is being discussed and addressed more. It's not to say at all that if the right medication is found, it can be hugely helpful. But no, go to your GP. Just make the step to speak to somebody.
Yeah.
We're working with the Norfolk Community Foundation, which is a brilliant setup, and there are some amazing groups like that working with charities which are trying hugely to help those in need. But I think the biggest step is to take that step, to go and say to somebody, help. Of course, it impacted me hugely, and not only did I lose a sister, it had, as you can imagine, a hugely powerful effect, a negative, destructive effect, initially on my poor mother, losing her daughter, and the way in which Rose took her life. I mean, it's no secret she used a firearm to end her life, which is a very rare thing for women to do, and that is a very brutal thing, and so that was horrifically difficult for my mother. So the impact on everyone around Rose has been huge, because you have the individual effect of losing someone that I desperately love and miss daily, seeing the the effect it's had on other people who loved her and missed her. But I a few years after Rose's death, suddenly knew that I had to speak to someone. I found myself sitting with my friends, sort of offloading, wanting to talk a great deal, and although friends are there for that, it's sometimes not necessarily fair to put them in that situation unless they sort of voluntarily say, look, if you want to sit down and really talk about this all the time, let's. So I was lucky enough to have a friend who works in mental health, and he recommended I spoke to somebody, and that was a very important part of my journey. I did actually group therapy for nearly 2 years, which was a weekly meeting, and I'll say quickly, actually, on that note, for those thinking of wanting to speak to someone, group therapy was very interesting. I went in to that, and I was a little, initially when I went in, I wanted to speak to somebody one-on-one, and sort of be fixed, get answers. And because of that characteristic in me, the therapist saw that very early on and knew that wouldn't be good for me. So she put me in a group environment. And what that allowed me to do is to sit amongst others, all with different reasons for being there, different reasons for affecting their mental health. And it gave me real perspective. And some weeks I'd go in and I'd almost be talking before I'd sat down to the group. And other weeks I'd sit there and feel I had nothing to offer. And I'd leave thinking, it's a bit of a waste. I've just traveled an hour to get there, and I've sat there for an hour and listened to other people's problems, and I'm sympathetic, but and then 2 days later I'd be doing something and I'd suddenly remember what Claire had said or somebody in the group, and it would be incredibly useful to have that perspective. So I did have therapy, and it was incredibly important. And one of the things I learned from that, which may be an obvious thing to say to people, but through grief or through mental health issues and troubles, those emotions are energy. It's all a form of energy within you, and it's either a negative energy in terms of a dark energy, or you can channel that into something else. But it's within you, and that was an important thing for me to remember, because Rose's death has had a monumental effect on me. But I try to take that emotion and channel it into something more positive, rather than allowing it to consume me and pull me into a darker place.